Good morning. We are going ahead and get started with our annual Pancakes and Politics. Good morning. My name is Jackie Dzelski, the President and CEO at the Manatee Chamber, and welcome to another sold-out Pancakes and Politics, which is the opportunity that the Manatee Chamber takes each year to welcome our state delegation that represents Manatee and Sarasota counties to come and address our business community about the session, which you all know kicks off next week. Our chair of our legislative committee will be moderating our panel this morning. He will tell you a little bit about the trip that the chamber took to Tallahassee last week during the last committee week of the Florida legislature and talk about the advocacy efforts that our chamber undertakes on your behalf. We believe one of the most important ways we fulfill our mission and add value to your investment as a Manatee Chamber member is through advocacy on a number of issues. Our committees work very diligently to craft an agenda. Casey will go into more detail about that process when he offers some opening remarks. But for those of you who have not looked at our 2025 business agenda online, I encourage you to do that. We have a number of priorities that have been vetted by committees and adopted by our board related to business and community resiliency, economic development, education and workforce development, health and workforce wellness, natural resources, transportation and infrastructure, and tax and regulation. So it's a very robust agenda that allows us to communicate with the men and women who represent us in Tallahassee about the priorities of the greater Manatee County business community. So now that I've offered a few opening remarks, I would ask that you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And as you are getting settled back in your seats, if you could please silence your mobile devices, we would appreciate it. There will be a time later in the program after we hear from our elected officials, from our state senator and representatives about their predictions for the upcoming session and priorities. There will be a time for Q&A with all of you, and we will have a microphone in the back center of the room. Again, Casey will help moderate that. I do also want to recognize your chairman of the board of the Manatee Chamber, Stu Henderson with Folly Bryant Architecture, who has joined us this morning as well. Stu, thank you so much for your leadership leading up to and, of course, during this year as chair of the board of the chamber. You can give him a round of applause, wake us all up. Thank you. Helps me during my annual review if I make sure, right, that all that appreciation comes. We have a number of elected officials in addition to our state delegation who have joined us this morning. I hope that my list captures everyone who we had on our list. From our Manatee County Supervisor of Elections, Scott Farrington. From the Manatee County Board of County Commissioners and Port Authority, Chairman George Cruz, Commissioners Amanda Ballard, Mike Ron, and Tal Sadiq. From the School District of Manatee County, Chairman Chad Choate and board members Heather Felton, Cindy Spray, and Richard Tatum. From the City of Bradenton, Mayor Jean Brown, Vice Mayor Josh Kramer, Councilwomen Marion Barnaby, Pam Coachman, Jane Coker, and Lisa Gonzalez Moore. From the Town of Longboat Key, Commissioner Penny Gold. And from Congressman Vern Buchanan's office, we have Tara Poulton and Edward Valdez. So thank you all so much for being with us. If you could show your appreciation. I also want to recognize the platinum investors in the Manatee Chamber who invest significantly beyond their annual membership dues at the platinum level of our chairman's circle to help the chamber carry out our robust program of work and meet your expectations on your investment in the chamber. And those platinum investors are Brown & Sons Funeral Homes, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, the City of Bradenton, Freedom Village of Bradenton, IMG Academy, Manatee County Government, Manatee Health, MCR Health, the Mosaic Company, NDC Commercial Real Estate, NDC Construction Company, the Pittsburgh Pirates and Bradenton Marauders, Raymond James Wealth Management, Bruce Body, the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, Seaport Manatee, and South State Bank. Thank you so much to our Platinum investors. And as you all see on your table signs, we have two sponsors who have for many years made Pancakes in Politics such a success and a sellout crowd every year thanks to this programming. And those sponsors are Kaiser University and Spectrum by Charter Communications. And we have Dr. Michelle Morgan from Kaiser University. She is the Associate Vice Chancellor and Sarasota Campus President, as well as Albie Kaminsky from Charter Communications, Senior Director of State Government Affairs for Florida. As I said, both have been top-level sponsors of Pancakes in Politics for years, and I'm going to invite each of them to come up and give a welcome. Dr. Morgan, if you could join us, please, from Kaiser University.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Jackie. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I thank the Chamber for your advocacy and for doing this for us. It's nice to get a little sneak peek into what's ahead during this legislative session, and we're so fortunate to be in this community with such a wonderful delegation. They're very strong, and they're tirelessly working for us, and we really appreciate what they do in their service to our community. So thank you very much. And Casey, thank you, too, for heading up the committee that went up last week. So Kaiser University, we've been here in your community for 30 years now. This marks our 30th year, and we were started in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, about a little over 45 years ago. We are in every major market in the state except Gainesville, and so we have 19 campuses statewide. We have all different degree programs from associate to doctoral degrees. And the thing that makes us a little bit different and unique is that we are a career education university. So while, the university offers over 120 programs here in our community, we offer about 30, and they're designed specifically to meet the workforce demand, the gap in workforce. So pretty much any program that we offer, if you look at our offerings, it's going to speak to directly where employees are needed in this market. We go year-round, and so our students get in and out and get into the career world faster, and we're just delighted to be here and serving in this community for 30 years. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. And next, we will receive a welcome from Albie Kaminsky.
All right, good morning, and thank you, Dr. Morgan, too. It's great to see all the hard work that you are doing at the university. And thank you, Jackie, and obviously thank you, Casey, for leading the charge in our advocacy efforts for the Chamber with this all-star delegation here, too. Jackie, one more time, shout out to you and the rest of the staff. It's pretty easy to see why this is a sold-out crew year after year. Again, this is a fantastic event. Love the pancakes and love the pints afterwards later, too. So a little bit about Spectrum, and again, I'm proud to represent this company across the state. Again, other than our lightning fast internet speeds, we also have a rock star team here. So David Garcia is your local point of contact here. David lives in Hillsborough, but we're going to make a manatee guy out of him real soon here. You probably might have even been confused because he was at the regatta this past weekend, touting our fast internet speeds and these fast boats. I know that there's a joke somewhere out there, but I'll leave that to somebody a little bit more creative than me. But and then we also have Leah Brown here. So Leah just left us about a year and a half ago, and while it was a loss for the company, it was a gain for the community. So if you ever have an idea, or she can make it a big idea and a big idea event. The European market here over in Bradenton recently was a fantastic event too. So Leah, I know that you're no longer representing Spectrum, but you're still a part of the family. So thank you again for being here. That deserves a round of applause. Again, Spectrum, I know, you've probably heard me in years past talk a little bit about our expansion and how excited we are to be expanding out into rural and unserved communities, and that was very important. We're investing, over $770 million in Florida alone with our company, and that's not just because of us. That's thanks to the county government here and all the great work that they've been doing, and their investment within the services for unserved Manatee County residents, but also the folks here to my left and your right, and historic investments, both at the state level and also at the federal level. But most importantly, when 2020 hit and most people didn't realize that this was a problem, these people were the ones who did, and they recognized it, and they created grant funding programs, and then they funded it with unprecedented amount here too, with $400 million. So again, big thanks to this legislature. Everything that we advocate for and these legislative priorities, that was just an idea in 2020, these guys actually implemented too. So thank you again to them. But now that we've turned that page, it's not just about expansion, it's about execution and making sure that, our customers are ultimately very happy. And if, the COVID, pandemic taught us two things about the internet. It's one, we want to make sure that you have access to it. And two, is it reliable, right? I just want to turn on the internet and want to make sure that I can get on my Zoom and connect with my team. I want to make sure that I'm learning from home, that we're working from home, and so that we can, be entertained from home, watch, game and watch or streaming our favorite shows and stream. Again, it's all about a reliable internet service, and I think that that's something that our team has been hyper focused on recently too, not just investing in expansion in unserved areas, but investing back into the communities that we already serve. So as a part of our commitment to serving our customers, we're investing millions of dollars across our 41-state footprint, primarily to make sure that we're evolving our network. I know I may have a baby face, but some people make fun of me for it quite sometimes too. But I do remember the days of the dial-up internet and trying to get on the phone and trying to get on the internet and having my sister in the other room and pick up the phone and having to start all over and that screeching sound. We've come a long way, and now we are prepared in a multi-year endeavor to evolve our network for multi-gigabit and symmetrical speeds. So sometimes that goes over a lot of people's head. I geek out on this. I actually, like the internet, and I like the things that we're working on. But at the end of the day, you're just going to make sure that at the end of the day, you're turning on your service and it's working. It's 99.9% reliable. And if it's not, this is a part of our customer commitment too, to make sure that if there are any issues, that we're here in the same day and hopefully within the same hour. Today isn't about Spectrum. So again, it's really about these people here, and just wanted to listen to a little bit more about their legislative priorities too, and more importantly, thank them for their sacrifices, but more importantly, their service to the community and to the state. We've got a rock star delegation. Everybody's already talked about this already, but just really quick, Representative Carnley and Representative Owen, two freshman members of the Florida House. I like a lot of people come up here and say, as freshman members, you're just trying to learn where the bathroom is. At the end of the day, these representatives have already filed probably over 5, 6, 7 pieces of legislation combined, and not only just filed, but moving them already. So again, these freshman members like this in their first year are already rocking and rolling and hitting the ground running, especially from the outside looking in. I can only imagine what it's like from the leadership perspective. First day. There's another joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to make that. Chairman Robinson and Chairman Buchanan, thank you for your continued leadership in the Florida House too. 6 years, and now for a very important 2 years coming up in Speaker Perez's inner circle too, but then also chairing some very important committees that are very important to our business agenda, but most importantly, you all are just fantastic public servants, and we're lucky to have you. And then Senator Boyd, Majority Leader Boyd, President-designate Boyd, I don't know what to call you. Okay. As in the spirit of thank yous and gratitude, thank you for not completely disowning me about 6 years ago when you kicked me out of your office as your legislative aide. Well, you got a major upgrade here too, with the best in the business with Kathy and Amanda there too. So thank you guys again for everything that you guys do, and all the work that doesn't truly get noticed on the grand stage, but make sure that that all these ideas and these bills are actually coming to fruition. So and Senator Boyd, I know we make those jokes too, but we're very lucky to have you. You're a true statesman. You lead with vision, honor, and integrity, and then we're very lucky to have you. So I'm gonna
Keep going. Yeah.
He's gonna kick me out again. I'm gonna enjoy the pancakes. Hope the rest of you do too as well. Thank you guys so much. Casey, excited for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, without further ado, I will introduce Casey Welch, Executive Director of the Institute for Public Policy and Leadership, amongst other roles that he scratched out of my script here. His business card is about three-sided with that. But Casey is with the University of South Florida and has served for several years as the chair of the Manatee Chamber's Legislative Committee. And I'll tell you, when we took our trip to Tallahassee last week with several members of our Executive Committee and our Legislative Committee, there wasn't a hallway or an elevator in which we didn't run into someone who Casey knew in Tallahassee. So also a rock star. And Casey, it is now yours to moderate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, and I appreciate the discretion of not reading all 4 or 5 of my titles at the University of South Florida. Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of friendly faces, and we're back home, not in Tallahassee, so that's a great thing. I want to thank the Legislative Committee for the Manatee Chamber for all your hard work. This isn't quite the culmination of that, but our trip last week was very successful. Some people may hear that it's more of a wine and dine trip. That's not true, Rick Bissio. It's not true. We did have some wine. Thanks to you. We did have dinner because that's the thing to do. But we did have some very effective meetings with this legislative delegation and talked through these points that are on your table and worked on the legislative committee. And while all the legislative committee members that worked on it were not able to make the trip, we did hit all the top line points that we talked about in our deliberative process, as Jackie touched on, with the healthcare committees, the transportation committees, and the legislative committees that all come together and funnel all these policy points into the document that you see in front of you. So I want to recognize you. If the legislative committee would just stand up for a round of applause. You know who you are. Yeah, David, you're on there now. So I appreciate that. Now I want to take a moment to let each member of our delegation come up, talk a little bit about their priorities, hopefully introduce their staff, and then we'll go take audience questions if we have time for that at this point. So I want to start with the distinguished gentleman from my left, State Senator Jim Boyd, who's a former chair of the Manatee Chamber Legislative Committee, and as Albie alluded to, is in line to be the 4th Senate President from this region. So, Senator Boyd.
Thanks, Casey and Jackie and Chamber Board. Thank you for having us. Dr. Morgan, Albie, and Spectrum, thank you all for your sponsorship year in and year out. We appreciate it. Give Art and Belinda our best and give Marv our best as well. We appreciate the continued support. So I recognize today that I'm the only senator here, so I'm sure I'll get a bunch of shots aimed at me, so I'll start taking a couple early so I can sort of defend myself. Usually Gruters is here to kind of give me a little cover, but he must have had something else today going on. More importantly and seriously, we have I believe, a great delegation. We've got, as Albie alluded to, we've got a couple of new members of our delegation, but they hit the ground running. They are sharp gentlemen and very, very committed public servants. So glad to have you all as part of our team. And Will and James have just year in and year out demonstrated leadership and their ability to get things done for our region, as has Senator Gruters, and hopefully I can work along with them as we have to do the right things for our community. So thank you guys for all you do, and as was mentioned earlier, 2 really strong leaders in the Florida House, James and Will, on the leadership team, the Inner Circle, which most people know what that means, but let me tell you what that means. That means Manatee County and our district and our region does well, because when you have folks that are in leadership, they're able to manage the priorities and bring things back to our community that are important to our community. So thank you guys for that, and I know they'll be a strong part of that as we move forward. I'll just be really brief because I know probably questions and the like are more important to you all. We got off to a little bit of a slow start, as you probably recognize from the special sessions that we had. Some of us thought that we didn't necessarily need to do it that way, and we had some pushback, and in the end, we worked, excuse me, out some compromises I think were good for the cause and good for Florida and good for what we're all trying to accomplish. So we got that past us, but what that did was really kind of slow everything down. And now next week is the first week of session, as you know, and there's, I don't know in the House, but in the Senate, there's probably 1,500 or so bills that will come from drafting to being filed next week, which means just a lot of those issues and initiatives are kind of dumped into the hopper, if you will, and they'll start getting assigned to committees or not. I would suspect there'll be a lot of initiatives that don't move forward because there just simply isn't enough time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I was one of, since my time in the legislature, gone up to Tallahassee, not trying to see how many bills I could pass or how many bills I could carry, but what really matters and what should we really focus and work on. So this will help that process a little bit because there just simply won't be enough time to deal with everything that is on everybody's mind. But hopefully we'll all pick a few priorities and pursue those. My goal, my job this year is, as majority leader, I'm not running specific bits of legislation, but I'm helping my colleagues, excuse me, and then the President of the Senate, Ben Albritton, accomplish his objectives. And one of the main objectives of our president is rural, he calls it the Rural Renaissance Program, and you've probably seen a little bit about that. But he comes from Arcadia, or from, excuse me, Wauchula, so that, you know, the center part of the state and other parts of the state have been somewhat neglected in the past in terms of lots of the services and availabilities that we have in larger communities. So one of the things, and Spectrum and Charter have been a big part of that, is just broadband in those communities and the ability to communicate. So that healthcare is another initiative, education, training for jobs, that'll all be a big part of Senator Albritton's priorities, and I'll hopefully be able to help carry that through. So that's kind of our focus. There'll be other things that we deal with. I know there's chamber issues we talked about when y'all were in town that we're going to be about. I'll just briefly mention the business rent tax. That's something that must go away. We just continually chip at it, but I don't see it completely going away this year because the price tag is still pretty high, but we've got to continue that because that's a tax on a tax. And those of you that own properties and lease them out, you know what that costs you every year. So we'll continue to work on those things and lots of other things that are important to the business community. Hopefully we'll get into that in a little bit. I was told, and I don't want to forget, so thank you for reminding me, our staffs are here, Kathy Gailey in my office and Amanda Romont. We're here to help and we're here to serve. So if you have any questions or any ideas or thoughts that we need to hear about, please reach out to us. Kathy and I will be in Tallahassee a lot over the next 2 months, but Amanda will be in our district office to serve you as well, and we're a phone call away. So if we can help in any way, let us know, and I'll be quiet and then be glad to answer some questions later. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Boyd. And as Senator Boyd alluded to, we have Representative James Buchanan from District 74, who, again, as the Senator alluded to, is on the leadership team for House Speaker Danny Perez, and we look forward to hearing some of his priorities this morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you. I'll tell you, Senator Boyd's always a very difficult act to follow, so he hit all the high points, but I'd like to touch on a few things. And by the way, Casey, you're looking great. I was feeling a little underdressed with that three-piece suit there. It's great to be with you. I chair the Commerce Committee this session, and we, as Senator Boyd alluded to, we are a little bit behind as it relates to bill referencing, but I assure you we will get caught up, and as he also alluded to, it's not necessarily a bad thing because we're not necessarily elected or should measure ourselves based on how many bills we pass. It's about stopping bad legislation that's going to impact the people that we represent. As it relates for me, and over my career in the House, one of the things that's been important to me is driving down the cost of living, making home ownership more obtainable, affordable. It wasn't so long ago, it was a couple weeks ago, right after I think our third special session. I was asked to join the governor at a press event of which we were going to have a conversation around insurance, of which is something that's very important to our constituents and the entire state. And part of that conversation was around also property taxes. And it was alluded at a point in time earlier in the press conference that there wasn't a whole lot that had been done as it related to that issue. And I did have to stand up and remind the governor that, I brought forward an HJR along with an implementing bill, of which the House and the Senate passed. And by the way, it was one of the only amendments on the ballot that the voters approved. It was Amendment 5 that would index your homestead exemption, the non-school levy portion, to inflation. And by the way, whatever we do in that regard in the future, that bill will also apply. So if we decide we want to, and I did have an additional HJR that would have doubled the non-school levy homestead exemption, it will be applied to that. So it's a very powerful tool of which can be compounded over time. But additionally, driving down the cost of home ownership, we could also talk about insurance. There are things that have been that will help us in driving down the cost of insurance and help our constituents be more resilient, like the Save Our Homes. That's something that's been a very popular product, of which folks have made investments in making their homes more resilient, and that's something we're going to continue to invest in and make sure it's accessible. I know there's a pretty long waiting list as it relates to that. I want to acknowledge, before I hand the mic on here, we do a lot of great work in the legislature, but we can't do the great work we do without a good team, without a good staff. I'm someone that's very fortunate, who's had great and loyal staff over the years. Thomas Saavedra is here. Where's Thomas at? Thomas is over here in the corner. So if you need to get my contact information and you don't have a chance to speak with me, please get it through Thomas. Thomas has worked with me in a couple different capacities over the last 5 years and has worked his way up to legislative aid. So when you come up to see me and we're scheduling appointments, he will be who you're working with. Thank you, and it's an honor to serve you in Tallahassee.
Thank you, Representative Buchanan. Appreciate that. Now, as another former chair of the Manatee Chamber Legislative Committee, the Representative Will Robinson from District 71.
Good morning. Where's Jackie? Jackie, I haven't disappointed you yet. This is my 7th breakfast, and I'm here. It's one of my favorite events all year. But sometimes I ask myself, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? Well, today I think we have plenty, whether it's a governor's race or immigration, or lots of topics are coming at us very, very fast. But it's my pleasure to be here. And I was preparing for a speech yesterday in Palm Beach, and I did like any good lawyer does. I did a search on my prior speeches, and something popped up from 2011, and I kind of looked at it, and it was not a speech, but a script. I was the chair of this committee, and it was just very kind of a similar type of script. A gentleman, a newly elected representative, Representative Boyd, was on that script. This was back in 2011. So it got it got me looking back about what our priorities were back in 2011. And if you remember those times, those were very dark times for this community. We had just come out of a recession. But to be honest with you, a lot of the issues were the same issues that we're dealing with today. And so then I pulled out the Chamber's legislative platform, and I went through those for a little bit. By the way, Jackie, you know what the word used the most in that platform is? Funding. Funding is used about 15 or 20 times on your platform. We have a lot of important priorities in this area that need to be funded. But I thought more deeply about what we've accomplished over the past decade or so. And some of these issues, I first thought, well, we haven't really done anything because these issues are still on the platform. But then I thought more deeply and I said, well, our community is growing at such great rates, these issues will never be ticked off the box. I don't think we're ever going to say to ourselves, we have fully solved our infrastructure needs. I don't think we're ever going to say that. I don't think we're ever going to say, you know what, we finally solved water quality. Everything is perfect out there on the beaches. Everything is totally fine. We can tick that off the board. I don't think we could always say our education is fully funded and everything's perfect and our kids are being educated perfectly. So we continue to work on these issues and more on behalf of you all in Tallahassee, whether or not they're old or they're new. For me, in my role as State Affairs Chair, a lot of what we're going to do is kind of the function of state government. We may even have our own DOGE type of bill. I don't like acronyms, but we may be dealing with something like that. But probably one of the higher priorities that I've taken the lead, I won't be the sponsor on it, but taken the lead on helping to draft, is a disaster recovery plan. You just look out there in our beautiful area. We all know what we dealt with this past summer with 3 devastating storms that hit us all differently. And I'm hopeful that with the legislative process that we'll come together on a bill that is both consumer-friendly, but also deals with some rogue local governments out there that we think could be doing a better job in helping people in their darkest time get through the recovery process. Some simple things that we all think about, and the cranes in St. Pete. You know, why weren't those taken down? I heard about the getting rid of the debris a lot and what's being charged, and different companies coming in and basically leaving the job if a different jurisdiction paid them higher, you know, across town. So a lot of issues that we're going to be dealing with regard to that. When you become a senior in the legislature, you know, you go through a lot over the past 6 years, and one of the little perks is you get a bigger office, which is nice, you know. Mine is ridiculously long, and I was looking at it one day. I'm like, it's missing something. So I went to my mom's house and I saw it, and there was this coffee table, and the coffee table is my late father's sign that he hung, Robbie Sporting Goods, if you all remember, and my mom made it into a coffee table. And it's a beautiful sign, and it has all his stores, his first 10 stores, Bradenton, Sarasota, Fort Myers. And so it was a little bit of a challenge to get it away from my mom. I told her I was just borrowing it for a year to put it in this ridiculously long office, so it sits right there. And you know, not only do I remember my father every time I pass that coffee table, but I remember what I'm working on for you all. My father was a small business owner and really sacrificed a lot for his family. And we deal with a lot of those issues, but every time I pass that coffee table, I'm going to think of all you all and my community, and what we really fight for up there is to make sure that you all are put in the best position to succeed, and to make sure that you all have the very best resources to allow your children to have the best lives that they can. And so we're up there fighting for you. We're going to get great stuff done this session. And I don't have any staff here. Maybe they're busily drafting up the bills the last couple of days. But we're here as a great team to serve you. Welcome to District 71, and can't wait for your questions. God bless.
Thank you, Representative Robinson. And one thing that I failed to mention is that you're also a key member of Speaker Perez's leadership team in chairing state affairs. And also one thing you forgot to mention, along with that wonderful, beautiful table, is that wonderful, beautiful picture of Robinson Preserve and looking out in the mangroves. So two nice touches of Bradenton in your office. So appreciate your leadership and your support of the chamber. I know President Gregory looks very relaxed sitting there, not up here today, and that's because Representative Bill Connerly has succeeded him in the Florida legislature. And Representative Connerly has already filed several bills relating to his background in engineering that I hope he touches on water quality and infrastructure, and some things that are going to be very key if we've talked about in resiliency in the Legislative Committee and recovery. And we look forward to hearing more from you, Representative Connerly.
Thank you very much. I like to say, as an engineer, I'm not burdened by human emotion. That's funny, but it's not true. No, I have a tendency to gravitate toward technical issues. I know the social issues are important, Not to me. No, I'm just joking. I know they're important, but I have a tendency to gravitate to the things that are more familiar to me. I'm a problem solver. As Casey mentioned, I'm a civil engineer by license, so I feel like I'm in a very good position. We had 3 storms in our district this past year, and it seems like a very good opportunity to at least have discussions. I would also like to say I'm very fortunate. While I'm riding in President Gregory's wake, I have resources that I think very few freshmen would have with Chairman Robinson and Chairman Buchanan, and of course with the future Senate President having an interest in my district. That's something I think we can all benefit from, so I appreciate that. Being a freshman is a little bit like being a freshman on a football team. There's opportunity for hazing to some degree, but it's always beneficial when I can actually watch somebody else be hazed instead of it being directed to me. But this year has been a little unusual. We had a couple special sessions, and some of them were not as well received as the results were not as well received as some of the other things that happened. But the benefit of that is, as freshmen, we were in the trenches with the senior folks, and I think there's a bit of trust that we gained with that process, so I appreciate that. My priorities, again, are technical. I want to focus on infrastructure. Everybody who drives understands that we need to invest in infrastructure. The other thing is with regard to flooding and storm resiliency. I've got a couple things in the works that hopefully can provide benefit to the communities and the entire state with regard to flood resiliency. And the third thing is housing affordability. I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of business sectors, actual owners and operators of smaller businesses, and without exception, the businesses seem to be labor constrained. And one of the largest contributing factors is the cost of housing. So I mentioned my priorities being storm resiliency, flood resiliency, infrastructure, and housing affordability. Of those 3, honestly, I think the more difficult one to solve is going to be housing affordability, because there are so many variables that are involved that it's just going to be an incremental change. And I do have a bill filed this year that is related to housing affordability. This is, I hope, a small change that helps move the needle. In addition, some very interesting bills that I have in the works. I have a springs restoration bill, which is taking reclaimed water and putting it in an aquifer to have a beneficial impact on the Itchinatucky and Santa Fe Springs. So these are all things that are again, very technical, but they fall within my wheelhouse, and I'm looking forward. As a freshman, I have no history, so I'm trying to build that history with the legislature and with the constituency. So if I can help anyway, please do not hesitate to reach out. Morgan Ross, if you would, please stand up. Morgan is my district aide. Should you want to have a conference or a meeting, please reach out to him. I'm doing something a little different this year. I have a virtual office, so I'm trying to go to my constituents, and we're moving meeting locations around. So if you have a desire to meet, please reach out to Morgan. Get his card after the breakfast this morning. And again, if I can help any way, I'd be happy to. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Representative Connerly. And those, while they are very technical, are very important issues as you look at our legislative agenda. Again, resiliency and recovery is something that, was top of our list when we were in Tallahassee last week. And last but not least, I know there's some Manatee High alum here will be interested in knowing that Representative Owen's parents are Sarasota High alums, which I told him as a child of 2 Riverview Rams to not hold that against me either. But he does have a lot of connections to this community. I'll let him talk about that. And we're so glad to have him a part of this delegation, Representative Michael Owen. Yeah, that's funny you remembers that. My mom actually juggled in the Sarasota Circus, and the Ringling family actually came to her when she was 19 and said, do you want to come with us to the circus? I'm glad she said no. I wouldn't be here right now. But my name is Michael Owen. It's a privilege to be here today. I represent District 70, so a majority of my district is Hillsborough County. About 30% of my district is Manatee, but it does not mean that this is any less important to me. You will find me here, boots on the ground, anytime that you need me here in this community. And first, where's Corey Francis? Corey, where are you at? Oh, there she is. Okay, that's my aide too. I didn't want to forget her. But if you have any questions afterwards, I'm going to hang out for a while because there's a lot of you here that I don't know. I was at the Tampa Chamber kickoff yesterday. There's more people here than at the Tampa Chamber kickoff. So I see this is on TV, so I'm sure I'm going to get some emails on that. But it really is an honor to be here. Real quick on the men to my left. Each one of these folks are super important to me. One thing I like about this delegation, besides that we're all Republicans, I do like what these men stand for. Bill alluded to us being freshmen, and Robinson's up here talking about how fancy his office is. Well, we're in a place called the Tower, aka the Tower of No Power, is what it's called. But I'll tell you, it doesn't feel that way. And what I mean by that, it doesn't feel that way because each one of these men who are senior to me, my voice is important to them. It matters. And these folks that have come here before us have really paved a way to keep Florida free, to keep us business friendly. We owe a lot of that to these men that sit right here. It's an honor to serve under you, even though I know you don't look at it that way. Jim Boyd has been a friend of mine for a long time. As a matter of fact, I'd say one of the reasons I'm standing here is because of some of the advice I got from him. I was a county commissioner before this. I know there's some commissioners here in this room. But I was a county commissioner before this, and his friendship and his advice, I can honestly say, is one of the reasons that I'm standing here today. My aide also put that on the calendar. This is my first time here, obviously. This was originally pints and pancakes on the calendar. And I was like, wow, Bradenton gets down like that in the morning. But I look forward to going to the pints and politics too after the legislative session. But some important things that I'm working on right now. One bill that I filed is on term limits for us. And what I mean by that, we do serve 8 years, but there is a little glitch in the system where you can kind of come back and run again after sitting out a very short period of time. I think that's a very important thing. I'm also working on some, I'm going to be prime coing with Representative Danny Alvarez, a bill that is going to make single-member districts across the state for county commissioners. It's very close to home for me because I was a recent county commissioner. And then I'm also running the Commerce Agency package, which Chair Buchanan will hopefully eventually see. Something for you guys to really take a look at because it has a real, I think, interesting component, very bold, very robust, that's going to bring more venture capitalism here to the state of Florida, which will mean more small businesses and growing chambers of commerce. So something to definitely look at. Bill Connolly's my good buddy down there. Our districts abut each other. And a funny thing is we always usually will ride together when we're riding a long period of time. We meet at a Cracker Barrel down the road and we'll ride together. You want to sleep well? Listen to Bill Connolly talk about water quality for 4 hours driving to Miami. And I promise you will fall right asleep. But the reason I say that, I really do, and I say this to everyone, I think he's the smartest guy in our class. Having somebody that can get in the weeds on those tough issues, I really look forward to serving with you, my friend, for the next few years. But again, I don't want to take too long. I know you guys have a lot of questions, but it's just such an honor to be here, such an honor to be part of this delegation. I appreciate you all. Let's keep Florida free. Thanks. So as Jackie alluded to earlier, Senator Gruters is not here. I guess it's tax season, or I think he's running for state fire marshal or something. But I want to recognize his wonderful staff. Stand up and say hello. Jeremy, recognizing you to stand up and say this is Senator Staffis here. Give them a round of applause. And I know Representative McFarland couldn't make it as well, but I didn't see her staff here, so I know she had a conflict. So now the moment we're all waiting for, questions about the 2025 legislative session, and I really hope you stick with our agenda so we talk to those questions about the things that we've asked about, since those of us who were on the committee and were advocates in Tallahassee last week worked really hard on that. I don't know if there's a microphone wandering around the room. Oh, it's in the back because I barely could see it. So if you could go back there, state your question, and as most alum of this breakfast know I will interrupt you if you're in the middle of a speech and ask you for the question, and then I'll try to moderate the best I can to pitch it to the appropriate legislator to answer. So if you would go ahead, sir, and state your name and your company, and then your question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Steve Tinsworth, orthodontist retired here in Manatee County, past president of the Manatee Dental Society, past president of the Florida Association of Orthodontists, past president of the 11 States Southern Association of Orthodontists. And I'm here more as a commentary of how fabulous our delegations have been, both currently and historically, for the public good, the oral health of Manatee County. They have been phenomenal. Senator Boyd, in the last session, his Bill 320 has been a landmark bill that not only passed in Florida, but was a focus point all across the country in protecting the public that had not previously been protected from online services that the Florida Board of Dentistry could not deal with because there was no statute protecting the public. And it was through concerted effort that all of that passed very effectively and was signed in by the governor back in July. And it is a major protection for the public. But these gentlemen, and historically our delegations, have been phenomenal in oral health issues. Dentists, as we go up as contact dentists to Tallahassee, and we put forth
I think you like these type of
recommendations.
questions, right? Those are the ones that are complimentary? Is there a question in there, sir?
The question is, there's several issues that will be coming up in the state. The Florida Surgeon General has put position forward about fluoridation, and I would like to get the perspective in that the American Dental Association and others in healthcare and science are still in favor of the fluoridation at the 0.7 parts per million. What is going to be looked at on the state level?
Any comments on any legislation filed on fluoride? Anybody? I don't know. You don't know, okay. Yeah.
Doctor, I haven't seen any legislation. I'm not quite sure where it would be referenced. It may be referenced through state affairs at some point. I mean, my preference, I know Manatee County has addressed this issue. Other counties, Lee County has addressed this issue. I'd prefer it to be addressed at the local level, but if the state, for whatever reason, needs to step in, happy to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Name and organization.
My name is Dr. Jim Whitman.
Thank you.
I am a proud member of the Manatee County Republican Executive Committee, Precinct 309, Longboat Key. I am here with a plea to all of you gentlemen who are all Republicans and all of whom probably benefited from the efforts of the members of the Manatee County Republican Party. Right now, we are disenfranchised. The Republican Party of Manatee County does not exist. It was taken off the table by the state party. We have no representation at the state level.
Chamber, sir?
And so I am calling on you with a plea. You know, I ran into Vern Buchanan at CVS the other day. He was not aware of this. So I am, and you may not be aware, but I am here to make you aware that we need the Republican Party of Manatee County to be reinstated at the state level. Please help. Thank you.
We got a bunch of doctors. Doctor, thank you. Thank you for, I know it's not on necessarily the Chamber's platform, but I hear you. I have recently talked to the state GOP chair, and I'm a precinct captain. I think I'm 325, just like you are. We have to have a functioning GOP in our county, and you're right, we don't right now. And it's distressful to me, and it's something that I've talked to the state party about, because you're right, we don't have appropriate representation at some of these boards, and we can't really have our meetings. I'm hopeful with those conversations that I've had with the chairman that we'll get back on track, because guess what? We have an election cycle right ahead of us in 2000. We already have governor candidates that have been announcing, so we got to get going soon.
We don't even have a Lincoln Day dinner.
Understood. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you. And I'll echo the doctor and doctorates like spies like us. Okay. Keith from the Legislative Committee. You want to hit something that was on our agenda since you missed our trip last week?
Absolutely. Well, slightly related, actually. As of lately, I know there's been a lot of conversations locally about moratoriums. And at the same time, we are a tourist destination in this region. And there's been a lot of talk about that. And what hasn't been said exactly, and I'll get to the question, of course.
Well, I'm just looking at Chair Cruz. Do you want me to have him come up here and address this? Because this doesn't sound like on our agenda.
Well, I'll just be quick with the question then, is that what is the current position on moratoriums with the delegation? Because honestly, a moratorium would be economically devastating to this region if anyone were to implement one.
Thank you, Keith. I don't know there's anything before the delegation presently that would speak to that. What I can tell you from my perspective, and these gentlemen can offer theirs, the local rights and home rule and the like, I support. Although some things in the legislature I voted on that haven't supported that. And the reason that I don't support some of the things that we've preemptively done in the legislature is when it tramples on property rights. And I won't stand for that as long as I have a say. Moratoriums have been ruled unconstitutional. There was a community very close to us that is a beautiful community. I won't go into specific names, but really close to us. And they issued building moratoriums some years back. Nobody could build anything, and that was ruled unconstitutional pretty quickly. And suits were filed and the like, and it would have bankrupted the city had those prevailed. So those suits prevailed, but it was settled in court as unconstitutional. So I don't personally, I can't speak for the county commission. That's their job, and we elected them to do that. But as far as moratoriums on just carte blanche moratoriums, I would never support. And if we have to deal with it in Tallahassee at some point, we can.
And I'll touch real quick on that. As a former county commissioner, I understand this question well. I would have busloads of people show up to protest certain developments. And a lot of times I bought into that, where I would take a position, but it wasn't legally sound. These are legal terms of art. What you got to be careful to, and I know there's county commissioners in this room, sometimes you can have a situation where you don't vote a certain way, you get sued, and then the taxpayers are paying legal fees. One of the big issues that we have more so in Hillsborough County, I can't speak to the commissioners here from Manatee County, is a lot of the issues are not spending impact fees on the areas where the development occurs, where the places that's why it's called impact fees, right? So one thing I would do is make sure, I don't think you guys have the issues we have in Hillsborough County as far as that goes, but we have a lot of impact fees that have not been spent in the areas that were impacted by the development. Look, everybody wants to move here. There's no doubt about it. The secret's out, right? So that's one of the big issues we got to deal with, is spending the money on the areas that are impacted by the development, and then also making sure that our roads, infrastructure, public safety, all those things are so important that we have in place as the development occurs. So that's one of the biggest issues I've seen. But you just got to be very careful on moratoriums whenever you don't have a legally sound reason to have them. Thanks.
It could. First of all, I think a moratorium in this county is illegal under Florida law. Attorneys, I play an attorney in my spare time, so maybe I'm wrong on that. But forget about that part of it. It's just, it would be incredibly devastating. And I'm very pleased with what I think is the moderate approach that our county commission, under the direction of Chair Cruz and Commissioner Sadiq, on this issue. And it goes back to my earlier comments. We have infrastructure needs. We have issues that we have to deal with as a community. To stop development would be the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard of, because frankly, the impact fees are what pays for the roads that we need to build. So we got to figure out a way as a community to come together and to make this work. And it's tough, it's challenging, I understand that. But I think we have the right people in place to make those tough decisions, like our county commission is doing, without such a drastic situation like imposing a moratorium, which would devastate. Think about all those families that are impacted by that industry. I certainly will be thinking of them if a moratorium is enacted in this county.
So it was a couple years ago, actually, who is now the speaker, speaker designate at the time, brought in a speaker for our class. And it was Art Laffer, who was one of Reagan's chief economists. And what he once said is, people vote with their feet. And that's certainly what's happening here in the state of Florida. When we begin to talk about things like a moratorium, it's not beginning to address some of those fundamental issues that are most important to our community when we talk about affordable housing. It's still not stopping folks from coming in and paying cash and undercutting folks that live at the local level. So I don't think it begins to address some of those issues, our infrastructure issues. And while I'm not an attorney, I've left some of those remarks to my colleague, Representative Robinson. I don't think that is the right approach. I have not seen something that's yet filed as it relates to it, but it would likely flow through the Commerce Committee.
Thank you. We're getting close on time, so I think we're going to do 2 more questions. Go ahead, Veronica.
Hi, everyone. Veronica Thames, Manatee Community Foundation. Thank you for hosting me in your offices a couple of weeks ago. You've been most gracious, and I can attest Mr. Robinson's office is the nicest.
Okay. You can see her out back later if you want.
So as a representative of the nonprofit industry, a huge part of our business community are those nonprofits. We are extremely lucky in this region with 750 active nonprofit organizations that serve water quality, housing, homelessness, childcare, and beyond. We are seeing major freezes and cuts. We've already heard of several organizations being directly impacted by those cuts at a federal and state level. If we decimate the nonprofit industry's funding, we will be looking at our government to provide those services. And we know that the government takes $4 to provide the service that a nonprofit provides for $1.25. And our government locally lacks the infrastructure and expertise to provide those services. What can we do as a community, business community, to enforce and to promote the funding of those nonprofits, and how can we partner with you to do that?
Well, I know you were going to take, yeah, go ahead, please.
Thanks for recognizing the beauty of Representative Robinson's office. I'm going to have to get over there and look at it. I don't have a table with my family store name on it, but
You have a nice office.
I thought my office looked pretty good, but my wife decorated it, so I know it wasn't my touch, but sorry. To your point, and Representative Robinson spoke to it earlier in his comments, when we came into the House in 2010, we had a $6 billion deficit in our budget, and $4 billion the first year, $2 billion the second year. A lot of things had to be kind of trimmed back, and we did, and we survived, and funding occurred in places that needed to be funded. So I say that to say this. We're looking at, right now our economy is great, and it's a result of, I think, good, common sense government that's allowing our economy to be great. And people want to come here, as all of us have spoken about. So that's good. We also have a spending curve that's kind of increasing as well, because monies have come in, and oftentimes government spends what they take in versus maybe giving some back to the taxpayers. Although we've done that every year. We've given billions back over the past 12, 14 years to taxpayers. So the spending is going up, the revenue has been going up, but we've got to flatten our spending curve a little bit, because sadly, when I'm in the president's seat in the Senate, we're likely to have another shortfall my second year if we're not careful. So I don't believe there's room for panic, but what I will tell you is we're just looking at all of our expenses. I know the House is doing it, the Senate's doing it, and there will be funding for organizations that need to be funded. That will never stop as far as I can see, and I'm sure my colleagues would agree with that. But we're just taking a little bit more judicious look at everything we spend money on and where it's going. And in some cases, probably nobody in this room, but some cases there's funding that's gone on year in and year out that really probably doesn't need to be funded anymore. And those are the things that we're really looking at. So low-hanging fruit that might be available to reallocate resources somewhere else. So we will continue to, and that's what we do. I mean, we fight for our tax dollars that go to Tallahassee to come back to fund the things that are important to our community, not just infrastructure and all of those types of needs, but also the great work that different organizations are doing in our community. So I don't expect you're going to see oh my gosh, all the funding's gone away. It's just a little bit more of a careful look at what we are spending money on.
Thank you. Any House members want to talk? Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Scott Eller, and I'm an affordable housing developer. Last year, the Biden administration, in their infinite wisdom, made the funding for HUD flat when it comes to new project-based rental assistance. The problem we're having in the state is people that are at 20 and 30 and 60% of area median income. These are people making around $10,000 to $40,000 a year, are your biggest challenge when it comes to affordable housing and attainable. So what happened is the Biden administration with the HUD flat funding created no new vouchers for people like me to bring in folks that need affordable housing. And now we're learning about everything with DOGE to where there's actually billions left here and there.
So is this question about the federal government or the state government?
It is. It's both. The problem we have is the state of Florida, and I supported it, was the anti-camping law. So we're illegalizing people to be homeless, but yet we have housing, but we have no way for them to pay for the rent to be in housing. How can we work at the state level and the federal level to try to remedy this issue?
Anybody want to talk about live local / anti-camping? A lot of takers, okay.
By the way, I think that as it relates to that anti-camping bill, you know, that's a concept that I think a lot of other states should look at and consider. That issue was brought forward and passed because it was something, it was really a public safety related item, but it also created an opportunity to provide folks in a certain geography, putting them in the same geography, better access to some of those services that they may need. And so your question was about how the interplay between the two.
Is with what Biden did with cutting HUD's money, we no longer have the rental vouchers to make the housing affordable for the people to move into. And so the problem we have is this compounded the issue in the state of Florida with the anti-camping ordinance, which again, I'm in favor of. But the problem is now is we made it illegal for people to be homeless. At the same time, there's no way to get them in housing if there's no way to pay for the rent.
So what I can tell you at the state level, at the federal level, I can't give you as much, but at the state level, there will be a new updated iteration again this session as it relates to Live Local. We've passed that, I believe it was 3 sessions ago, and we had an update last session as it related to it, because whenever you have a large piece of legislation like that, there's always glitch fixes. We're going to come back with another iteration of which I believe Representative Lopez will be carrying in the House. That is something that'll flow through the Agriculture Housing Subcommittee, and it's something that we'll likely see pretty early in session that begins to address, you know, some of the additional glitches that we've found as it relates to Live Local to make it better. If you'd like to come see me so we can have a conversation about, I can talk to you about what's in there, what's in that piece of legislation currently, and what we could potentially look at as it relates to making that better.
Yeah, and I'll just say, you know, when Live Local was originally passed, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I think I've called everyone here on this when I was on the county commission, just because of the component. Look, I think affordable housing and workforce housing needs to concentrate in the areas in the urban core, just because you need public transportation, you need jobs, you need all those things. And I also think local governments do a good job of trying to plan, to do a comprehensive plan that works for affordable housing. But on the state side, I think that, you know, they've gone over and beyond. I wasn't in the legislature at the time, but I mean, you're talking over $700 million a year that's being put into the Sadowski Fund. But affordable housing is going to be a challenge moving forward. I mean, we had major gentrification taking place from my district, from Waimama all the way through Parish, just because of all the new development. It's one of the byproducts of everybody wanting to move here. But I do think Live Local, I hope it does continue to get tweaked, because that's really on the state level, all I can see that we can do is just provide lots of funding But again, one thing you got to be careful too of, when you start knocking down, especially in these areas like Bradenton, Pasco County as well, when you start knocking down all your industrial, that's your future job centers. And Live Local, that's what it concentrates on. You have to have a certain land use designation for it. So, but I'm committed, obviously, like everyone is here, to making things more affordable. So please come by my office too and meet with me. I'd love to meet with you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. Yes, next question.
Hello, my name is Sheila Smiley, and I will be very quick because when I have a microphone in front of me, my husband panics that I'm going to sing. So I will be very quick, I promise. So, and I know this isn't on the agenda, but I just wanted the honourable gentleman in front of us to take a moment to look at the impact that families like myself are. We're on an E2 business visa, and the economic impact that we have our businesses on the local areas is fantastic. There's so many of us here working so hard for our businesses. The only problem is that an E2 business visa never leads to a green card, and such as my son, who's at USF at the moment, fantastic student.
Go Bulls. Yeah,
He's doing brilliant, but sadly, unless we get our green card, he will actually have to self-deport before he graduates, which is very sad. So I do have packs here today that I'd like to give you all, just have a look at and just see the impact that businesses like mine have on the area, and hopefully you'll give us your support and sign the letter that I've put in the pack for you.
So is this a question for any state legislation? Because
No, it's just me. Just me. Just letting it out there. That's all. Just thank you. But thank you.
Speak to that.
Obviously, immigration is front and center in our debate. It's a federal issue, but there are some things that we have done at the state level on that issue. But your specific concern is the reason, and I've said this many, many times, is why we need significant reform at the federal level. And unfortunately, your issue I don't think we can address from a state level, but I'm certainly happy to look at your packet of information. And look, immigration is a tough topic. It's very dense. We obviously had, 3 special sessions to try to tackle the issue. That's why I'm not a huge fan of special sessions. To me, special sessions are neither special nor really are they sessions. They're just kind of a way to get something passed very quickly. And on such a big issue like that, we got to make sure we're very deliberate. And I'm very proud of the legislative process because we have committees, we have folks that come in and testify. And we may have to continue to refine the bill that we just passed because we passed it in a special session, but happy to look at your concerns and take a look at that packet of good information.
Thank you. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Heather Felton. I'm on the Manatee County School Board, and I also live in Parrish. So I am looking at the education and workforce innovations here on the agenda. And one of the things that our districts across the state, the Florida School Board Association, the Florida Consortium, and the Chamber are all supporting is universal pre-K all-day programs. We've been asking for this for many, 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 many years, to have kids in VPK all day helps parents so that they're not trying to run back and forth to go get their kids when they have a middle of a work day and drop off your kid and then you got to go pick them up at lunchtime. What do you do with them then? All right, then you also have all of the fantastic statistical data that shows us the gains that kids make just attending VPK and how that prepares them for kindergarten and how their reading scores, because everybody wants to know what grade level your school is, right? And all of you developers out here also want to make sure that the schools that you're developing around have high grades as well. That all brings up school grades. It affects testing, it affects school grades, it affects the abilities of people to want to move to an area. We have been asking and asking and asking for full day coverage of VPK to include our VPK teachers as part of our K-12 teacher core, and I really, really would like to hear what you're going to do to support that.
Any takers on universal pre-K or early childhood? If Representative McFarland was here, I know that's one of her key issues as a new parent. Thanks.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I am in Chair McFarland's Student Academic Success Subcommittee. So first, thank you for your service on the school board. The two most dangerous rooms to walk in is an HOA board meeting and a school board meeting. And I appreciate your service, but I'm interested to learn more about it from you. So I'm just coming up here to let you know I'm in Fiona's committee there. She's the chair, and I would love to talk about this further with you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else queued up, so. Oh, okay, great. See, I should have just kept rolling with pints and politics.
And we're gonna get out of here, and then this
All right.
Tatum guy is
Yes,
gonna
sir.
stand
Yes,
up and speak. So here, let me pull
Yes,
this
sir.
out here. So yeah, Rich Tatum from the Manatee County School Board. If you want to talk about affordable housing and helping out with that, one of the things that we might be able to do to lower property taxes is bring down the cost of building schools. And so what I'm talking about is this thing called the SREF, the State Requirements for Educational Facilities. And basically it about doubles the cost of building schools compared to charter schools. And so if we can bring down the cost of building schools, we can hopefully maybe work with our property taxes a little bit. So I was just curious if any of the representatives or the senator think that there might be an appetite in the legislature to basically revise the SREF. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich, for that. And I've long advocated for, and I'm not an educator, so forgive me, but for templates, if you will, for schools to be built on, and certain size, certain number of students and the like, where every school district in the state of Florida doesn't have a different design and different price structure and the like. So we just literally had a conversation with some consultants in Tallahassee, I believe it was last week, on that very subject. So I think there's an appetite to consider that and to talk about it. And I think it makes great sense from not just from a logistics standpoint in your district, but also from a taxpayer's point of view. And then we would have money perhaps to spend on some other things that are maybe more important, and that is kids' education. So that's a conversation if you want to have with me as well to kind of give me some of your perspective. I'd love to have it, but we are having some conversations about that in Tallahassee.
Thanks, sir.
Rich, I'd welcome the opportunity to have a conversation. As a civil engineer, I have been the engineer of record for probably 18 different school projects, and some of them have been new construction, and I do realize that there are things that are beneficial. For example, it's not uncommon where a new school might be an emergency shelter, so it has to have additional sanitary, sewer, and water services. In addition, it has to be hardened. So those are some things that are probably beneficial. There may be many things that can be stripped out of the SREF. That is part of the Florida Building Code, so it's probably going to be more of a rules process as opposed to something legislative, but I would welcome an opportunity to take a little bit deeper dive and see what we might be able to come up with that would be beneficial.
Schedule then after the session's over, maybe. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I'd be happy to also have a conversation with you about it. Actually, it's about 4 years ago that one thing you find, and you see it more often the longer you've been in the state legislature. There's a lot of formulas that are in the statute that are somewhat antiquated and maybe haven't looked at or been updated in some time. This was a formula, actually, I think it was 6 years ago, I was a freshman, of which I believe we did update it. It was a bill that I ran that ended up into the larger education package that passed and was signed by the governor, that updated that formula as it related to per student station cost, as it relates to public education facilities. But I would love to spend some time with you and talk with you a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for taking it up. And just as an example, a 1,000-seat charter school was just built up in Parrish, $21 million. We're building a 956-seat elementary school, $68 million. Neither of those schools are shelters. So there's really some room there for improvement, I think. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Manatee Chamber, I want to thank everyone for attending today. I want a special thank you to the sponsors of Pancakes and Politics, Spectrum by Charter Communications and Kaiser University for their continued sponsorship and support. I want to give a special thank you as well to the crew from Manatee Educational TV, Chris Dolan and the staff. Thank you for always being here and supportive. Obviously, our legislative delegation and their incredible staff that make them look good. And IMG Academy Golf Club for the wonderful breakfast this morning. Appreciate you all. And last but not least, we look forward to seeing you all at Politics and Pints to go over the ashes of session and sift through what is left from that. But appreciate you all attending today, and go out and do great things for Manatee County.
Thank you.